All right, I think it's about time that we kick this off. Thank you for attending tonight's workshop. I always find it interesting that I read this a while back, but people spend more time planning a 1 week vacation than they do on their retirement. Obviously, you're not one of them because you are on this call and you're trying to learn about Social Security. So let me turn off my phone because that is going to ring. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So the first thing is this slide. This slide shows you that if you have worked 35 years and you're average income earner, you have put in the Social Security Administration, including interest, close to $1.5 million. So that is a lot of money you've put in the system. You're entitled to get the most amount out. And tonight's webinar is going to teach you exactly how to get the most out of your Social Security, whether you're single, married, or divorced, and or widow or widower. So we're going to cover those 4 areas. All right. First thing is I have to always do disclaimers, right? First disclaimer is I'm not an attorney. We don't talk about anything legal on this particular webinar. I'm also not a CPA. I do talk a lot about taxes. I don't talk about filing, but taxes and Social Security planning and financial planning in general. You need to be efficient with your taxes. And if you're not looking at the taxes, and that's why we're doing the Roth conversion slides today, if you're not looking at that, you're missing a vital part of your retirement plan. This is the workbook. It took us a lot of time and effort to put this together. You are entitled to this. You get this for free. All you have to do is put in your email address at the end of this workshop, and boom, we are going to send it to you. In addition to that, if you decide, hey, you know what, I have a little more questions or I want to get some answers, this is the opportunity when you sign up for this that you can set up a time to talk to myself and my team about Social Security or anything else that you have questions on. And that is completely free as well. All right, so why is Social Security such a hot topic? I have slides that are going to talk about this, but the end result is that there are a ton of people entering Social Security. And as more people enter Social Security, it has an effect of draining Social Security. So as I'm sure you're aware, you've seen headlines in the newspapers, Social Security 2034, 2035 is going to be bankrupt. I will say this, though. It's going to be bankrupt regardless. There's nothing really they can do. There are a couple ways that they can kind of patch it, and I'll explain what they are. But there are a lot of people, as you can see from this slide, there's over 3.5 million people per year entering Social Security. And that is a lot of people collecting payments. And as we live longer, that is a lot of money going out for Social Security recipients. Remember, when Social Security came out, the average life expectancy was about 68, right? Social Security, you got it at 65. They expected people to live 3 years past 65. Get Social Security. It was never designed as what it is today, which is a lifeline to a lot of folks. And I'll explain that too. So 65% of folks really rely on their Social Security payment in order to get by. And I see it. I mean, obviously, I'm a financial advisor. I see it all the time. People, it wasn't so bad 15, 20 years ago when folks had pensions. A lot of folks that work for the AT&Ts and the DuPonts and the Unilever and all those kind of companies, they had pensions. But a lot of folks don't have pensions anymore. It's relying upon you to put money in 401ks and things, 403Bs. But by and large, there are no more pensions for you to pull from unless you're a government worker. They still have pensions, obviously. You're fortunate enough. And, school districts, firefighters, police officers, there are still jobs that have it. But by and large, I would guess to say 85 to 90% of the pensions in the public sector are absolutely gone. So it's important to get this right. This is a building block. It is the foundation. You ever look at the food pyramid? this is the bottom layer of your retirement plan, and that is knowing how much you're going to get in Social Security and how to maximize it. I'll show you. We'll share with you a couple of strategies for that. All right, we talked a little about that, and obviously, you see those news articles where half of Americans are basically dying with less than 10,000 in the bank. So it's really stressful. Can be stressful when you retire. Number one concern, obviously, for retirees is run out of money. It's one thing if you want to go live with your children. It is another thing entirely if you have to go live with your children. All right. So we want you to make the decision on your own, not be forced to make a decision because you're running low on money. All right. So some of the questions to ask yourself, do you insure your home? Do you insure your car? Do you insure your health? And do you insure your retirement? Now, there's a couple ways to do this, but Social Security, again, it's going to be that first building block that we're going to work on. So making sure you're maximizing your Social Security benefit is the most important milestone that you can do on your retirement planning. All right. So I've kind of beaten that to death, but it is super important. And that's obviously why you're here. So today is the last day that you're going to work. Where's that next paycheck coming from? Is it coming from Social Security? You take investment assets. Do you get a pension? This is very important to figure out the layering of your retirement and how you can afford to live. Now, one of the issues with not maxing out or not getting as much as you can out of Social Security is that you have to plan for longevity, right? It's one thing if you've got health issues, and I know that I run into folks that have health issues all the time. But if you are healthy, there's a 50-50 chance that you and your spouse will live to age 93. So it's important to know that if you're in good health, one of you statistically is going to live to age 93, 90s, but that's a long time. If you retire at age 60 and you live 93, that's 33 years that your savings and your pensions, if you have any, but more importantly, that Social Security. That Social Security is the only payment that you're going to get that's guaranteed for the rest of your life. All right, so we covered that. I always like the slide. It's pretty fun to look at this every once in a while. So this lady was born in 1907. According to the last thing I checked, she's still alive, still with us. So that's 117 years old. That is a pretty old person. So if you do have longevity in your life, I have one client, her parents passed away at 103 and 104. She was 75 years old, and we had to make plans for her for 30 plus years at 75 years old. So knowing how old you're going to live, obviously you can bounce the last check you write. But by and large, we want to make sure that you have enough money to cover yourself in retirement. So focus for today is going to be about the basics of Social Security, strategies for married couples, divorced couples, widows, and benefits. And I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't talk about the tax component of this, because Social Security is taxed, but in order to maximize your benefit, we need to minimize your tax. And we'll give you a couple strategies and a couple hints on what our clients are doing in order to maximize their benefit. And again, minimize the tax. All right, so here's some of the basics of Social Security. How do you qualify? You basically worked at a job that you paid into Social Security. You have 40 credits. Now, 40 credits is broken down into quarters. So that means that you have worked 40 quarters or 10 years of work. And one credit, you have to earn $1,510 per quarter in order to qualify for this. If you've earned less than that, you simply don't qualify for that quarter. But if you log on to ssa.gov, you'll have a good indication as to what your benefit is going to be. All right. So they take the highest 35 years. So for some folks, for instance, I've got a teacher down here in West Palm Beach. She is taught for over 50 years. Can you imagine that in different schools? Obviously, the school system's growing here in South Florida, but she has taught for over 50 years. They are only going to take the highest 35 years of her Social Security. Now, there are exclusions and reductions for some of the folks that have not paid into it. Some of the government workers, there's a government offset, windfall elimination. And there's a couple of municipalities down here that have not paid in the Social Security as well. So actually, there's a junior college down here that hasn't paid. So one of the things that somebody raise their hand. So if you do have a question, you're on the Zoom call, please just do me a favor, just click on the Q&A, put your questions up there. As we get to the end of that, our time together, I'm going to flip back and answer some of the questions. I have 10 minutes put aside for the end, and we will take care of that. All right. So again, there are some exclusions to Social Security. So how does Social Security work? Basically, you're putting in 6.2%. Your employer is putting in 6.2%. So that's about 12.5% of your pay that is going into Social Security. And it's interesting to know that there is a cap. So if you've earned over $168,000 this year, you do not pay into Social Security once you hit that cap. Today's contributions cover today's benefits. So what does that mean? It's kind of like a pyramid scheme because the money you put in isn't earmarked for you. There's no account with Jane Doe, and there's $1.5 million sitting in there waiting for you to start pulling money out. And whatever you don't use goes into the kitty, and your family gets. That does not happen. They have basically robbed the Social Security system. And the way it works is the money you put in pays for your neighbor's benefits. So how much have you put in the Social Security? Again, I quickly showed you this, but all you have to do is take the number of years you worked. On this example, it's 35. Average salary of 85,000. Lifetime earnings of 2.9 million. 12.5% goes into Social Security. That's 368,000. Now, if you account 6% interest to that, it does equal close to $1.5 million, which is a lot of money. It's definitely a lot of money that folks have put into the Social Security Administration. So what about solvency? We always hear that's going bankrupt. 2010 was the first year that it was in the red since 1983. It is fully funded. Now, these numbers are what just came out a couple months ago. So this is as current as we can get. 2035, it's fully funded through it. I will say this, that is assuming the market doesn't do anything weird and that the stock market is just consistent until 2035. Is the stock market ever consistent? No. Are we in for a world of hurt with everything going on in the world? Probably so. This number, I would assume, is probably more like 2032, maybe even 2031. Some of the things that they're going to have to do in order to fix that. So after it goes bankrupt, they'll have 83 cents on the dollar. So I know one of the news channels put this out that everybody is going to get 83 cents on the dollar. Excuse me. That's not the case. They are going to prop it up, even if they've got to print more money, which they don't seem to have a problem doing. So 4 basic proposals to improve it. Increase the minimum retirement age. This is actually fixes that would help it. They could just keep running the printing press and, make a amendment or whatever the case is. But this is some of the things that could fix it. And by the way, the sooner you get in and you try to fix it, the better off. If you wait till 2036 to fix it, nobody's going to be happy. But increase the minimum retirement age. Today it's 62. And by the way, they'll probably do this for the 20-year-olds, maybe even 30-year-olds. They probably won't do it for anybody that is, in their 50s or 40s and 50s, especially not your 60s. So increase full retirement age. Today it's 67 for folks born after 50. I forgot if it's 57 or 58. But anyhow, they could increase that as well. And by the way, these little fixes end up changing the Social Security system a lot. They could increase the payroll tax from 6.2. They could increase it. You know, they always say, well, let's have the corporations pay more. If they have corporations pay more, all that means is that they're going to raise the prices. You know, that system is just one big ball that just keeps rolling. But they are going to have to do something. And they could always reduce benefits. Again, you and I are voters. Most people in their 50s and 60s vote. So reducing benefits would create probably a lot less job security for politicians, which I don't think is a bad thing, but nonetheless, anyhow, I don't want to get too far into it. All right, let's talk a little bit about how your benefits are determined. All right, so let's say you've worked your 35 years, boom. What is your benefit and what options do you have? Well, first off, just so you know, this is an illustration, and I'm going to use 66 as your full retirement age. You may be 67. You probably know what it is at this point, but the illustration just works a little easier when I do it this way. So you're 62 years old, and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to start Social Security. You can do that. Let's suppose that your benefit is $1,000. You will get $750 a month. Okay, that's just the way it works. They penalize you for taking Social Security early. 63, they'll give you $800, you know, 860 or $861, and so forth and so on. So you hit your full retirement age, boom, you can do two things. One is that you can work and they won't claw back your Social Security. I've got an illustration on that. Two is if you can wait until age 70, at which time, instead of getting $1,000, you can get 1,320. So you can see you can get a 75% of what you make, or you can get 132%. And by the way, everybody thinks that you have to wait till your birthday in order for these increases to take place. That's not the case. They actually go up monthly. So you can take 1% divided by 12. It's about 0.08% or so. That goes up every month that you wait. All right. So three different Social Security benefits. One, you're going to take your own benefit. This first benefit is your own benefit. You work 35 years, you put in the system, and now it's time for you to take benefit out. Spousal benefit. So if you have a spouse, you can essentially claim half of your spouse's benefit at their full retirement age, and that this is a distinction, and I'll illustrate that. And widow or widower benefits and survivor benefits. There's a special category for survivor benefits, and I'll cover that as well. So the Bipartisan Act of 2015, it just said, hey, look, people were monkeying with the system. We are going to do away with this file and suspend, and some people were getting higher benefits. The government doesn't like it when people change their system. So they jumped in here and they did away with a lot of the perks, let's just say. So two ways that you can file. You can just file, but there is a voluntary suspension. I had one client that was working for the school system. She discovered that they had a mistake. They hadn't filed, or 2 of the years that she worked as a teacher, they didn't have on her Social Security statement. So she got her W-4s, she filed it, and they made they fixed it. Excuse me. They need to fix this before you start your benefit, though. So don't think they're going to fix it while your benefit is going. You need to evaluate it and fix it prior to, and rescind your application. For instance, I had a client that received a sizable inheritance. He had just filed for Social Security, but after the inheritance is pretty big, he didn't need it anymore. He's like, all right, how do I get out of this? Well, essentially, you can go down Social Security Administration as long as it's within the first year. You say, hey, I made a mistake. I want to pay back. You have to pay back your Social Security, whatever that is. Say it's $10,000. You have to pay back that $10,000, and you can have them basically as if you never had taken Social Security at all. So you can do that. I've only had one person do it. And by the way, he wasn't even able to do it. It was when COVID was happening. All Social Security folks were working from home. He couldn't get a hold of anybody. The phone lines, you just simply could not get a hold of anybody. Nobody's in the office. He just said, screw it. I'm just going to take my benefit and That was it. So some of the considerations for married couples, you have to be married for at least 1 year. Okay. So if you're thinking of doing spousal benefits, you need to be married for at least a year. The primary worker must have filed. Now, this is important. The primary worker has to file. If they are waiting for their benefit to increase to that 132%, the spouse cannot get half of the primary earner's benefit. The spouse has to file. All right. That's an important distinction. A lot of people miss that. And it's half of the primary worker's PIA. That's primary insured amount. That is the amount you get at your full retirement age. That is not if you wait. So if you're getting 132%, you decide to wait to age 70, that doesn't count. They only take it back to that 100%. So that $1,000 on the illustration I used before, spouse could be getting 100 or 1,320, but the spouse would only be getting 500. Okay, that's the important distinction here. All right, and a quick illustration I just went through. You'll notice here that if your spouse files early, it affects you as well. So not only do you not get half, but you get a reduction in what you get as well. So it's important. If you do have a spouse, it's important to know how to file, because you need to know who to file first. And you also, for the primary care or the primary earner, one of the other things is that you want to wait as long as you can, because your spouse, if something happens to you, your spouse now inherits your benefit. They inherit your benefit. So if you've waited, now they can get the higher benefit. The drawback again is that your spouse can't get a benefit until after you file. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll have the spouse file for theirs. The lower of the two, the primary care will wait. And then when they hit 70, we can change the benefits at that point. And yeah, a little advanced, but suffice it to say, if you are married and you're looking for spousal benefits, we have a full spreadsheet that can help you out and figure out what date and what time and how to get the most out of it. All right. So survivor's benefits, it's at the death of the first spouse, the surviving spouse can receive a maximum. Okay. It's the maximum. So you get the highest benefit out of all these, his or her own benefit, the benefit of the deceased, or 82.5% of the deceased if, again, the deceased files early. It's important to know that if the primary earner files early, you still get a reduction in the Social Security benefit. All right, super important. Some of the common mistakes, again, higher wage earner files early and shortchanges the survivor benefit. I'll show you an illustration here in just a minute, how it affects you both. So considerations for divorce folks, married a total of 10 years. So you have to be married 10 years to be divorced and then get divorced. Not currently married, and same benefit amounts and reductions apply for early claiming. So in other words, if your spouse has filed for early benefits, then you also get a reduction in your benefit. All right. And independently entitled, you have to be divorced 2+ years. All right. So common questions that we get for the divorce question is, do you need to contact your divorced ex-spouse in order to file? No. All you need to know is your divorced spouse name. They have it on file if you go see the Social Security Administration. I will say that this is one issue and point of contention working with Social Security. It's a government agency. They are not allowed by law to give you any information on anybody's benefit except your own. So that puts you in a catch-22, because if you go down there and you say, well, I'm thinking about getting spousal or divorced spouse benefit, they may say, well, it's going to be in the range of X. Technically, they don't have to tell you. So it's an issue. I don't have any way to resolve it, but it's always better to go down there and talk to them person to person. than I think over the phone. I hear people get a little bit better results. So that would be my suggestion. All right. Ex-spouse notified if you're taking half of the benefit. No, ex-spouses don't get notified whether you're taking their benefit or not. And it doesn't really matter to anything because their benefit does not get modified in any event. All right, so widowers, survivor benefits. Couple of things is that you have to be widow or widower, but you can start your benefit at age 60. It is one of the few benefits that you're able to start at age 60. Typically, it's age 62, right? For normal Social Security participants. In this instance, it is 60. You have to be unmarried past age 60. If you get married and it is you're 59, 11 months and 30 days, you get married, you will disqualify yourself from this benefit. You cannot get remarried until you are age 60 or older. And you have to be married for at least 9 months. There are exceptions to this. If you get married and let's say you get somebody gets shipped off to war and they die in war or something like that, they will make an exception to it. They don't want, and people are gaming the system again. They don't want somebody to get married just to get higher widow benefits if somebody's soon to pass away. They do make they do look at this kind of thing. All right, that's enough about that. So here's a quick example. You've got John, who was married and died at age 64. He had not filed for his benefit. All right, so it's important to know some of these details. His benefit, though, would have been $2,150. Jane, his wife, was 5 years younger. She's 59 years old, and she did not remarry before she turned 60. And Jane's estimated benefit on her own earnings alone is 62. At 62 is 1,197. All right. So his benefit was 2,150. Her benefit's 1,197. You say, she came to me and said, Terry, what is the best way to maximize my benefit? Say, okay, there are 3 options, right? Strategy number 1, you just file for your benefit, the widow benefit at age 60. It is $1,537 a month. Her life expectancy is age 85. So her total benefit is about $461,000. Okay. Strategy number 2, we say, well, you could file for your benefit at age 62, which is the 1197, and then switch to the widow benefit at age 67 and get a slight increase to 2150. So that total benefit now is 538,000, which is about $70,000 more. All right. So you do strategy 1, strategy 2, and then there's a third strategy. She could file for her benefit at age 60, which is the 1,530, the widow benefit, and then switch to her own benefit after all the delays at age 70, which her benefit now is 2,108. So between age 60 to 69, she's getting $1,500. Between 70 and 85, she's getting 2,108. So now her total lifetime benefit is 563,000. So you can see you can go from 460 to 563, which is about $102,000 more, just by knowing how to plan your retirement benefit. This is why I'm saying it's so important. Because here, just knowing the rules and playing by the rules, we are able to get this client $100,000 more in Social Security benefits over her lifetime. All right, so they do claw back if you are trying to work after you retire. It boils down to this. If I'm talking to somebody and we're going through different scenarios, I say, all right, you're going to be turning 62. Are you going to pull any money out, or are you going to work part-time? If the answer is no, then I say, okay, let's do your budget. Let's do an income budget. Let's see if you need Social Security. If you have enough investable assets to cover you for a year, 2, 3, 4, I say, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and use your investable assets in the event you want to work a part-time job? And if you do, great. Because once you start Social Security, you can't stop unless it's in the first year. But if you're going to work a part-time job, you say, geez, you know what, Terry, I'm bored. I just can't take it. I got to get out of the house. I got to do something. Unfortunately, we've already started Social Security for you. So now let's say you get a part-time job and you earn $40,000 a year. The rule of thumb here is anything over 20, they're going to take $1. They're basically going to take 50% of everything over. So let's say you're for 42,000 just for ease. They are now you're over by $20,000. You divide it by 2, $10,000. So for the first 5 months or so, they are not going to pay you your Social Security benefit. I know it stinks. You've earned it, but they will claw back your Social Security if you do not reach your full retirement age. And again, they claw it back the year that you do reach your full retirement age, but it's substantially higher. And again, anytime you want an illustration or you want to know what these numbers are, we can work these out for you. So now let's move on to tax, because tax is also, like I say, it is hand in glove with your benefit. And for every tax dollar you don't pay, that's another dollar in your pocket. So IRS comes up with their own publication here on how to tax Social Security. It is a whopping 33 pages long. I suggest if you want some reading material to get you to sleep at night, you can pop this open. But in all seriousness, it is taxed. It's not that hard to figure out. TurboTax and accountants know how to do this pretty readily and easily, but they have their own term. It's called provisional income. So let's say that your Social Security is $24,000 a year. You just take half. So it's 12,000. Again, this is to figure out how much of your Social Security gets taxed. Half of your Social Security. Okay, that's easy enough done. And by the way, these are the line items on your tax form on that 940. So you combine the amounts of what you've been earned and also line 2, and that gets you, for this instance, $18,000. So 18,000 is your provisional income, has nothing to do with your tax bracket or anything like that. It's just to determine how much you pay in, or pay, how much taxes are owed on your Social Security. And this is where some of the strategies start coming into play. This Roth IRA, this income amount that I just talked about, when you have to add all your lines together, Roth IRAs do not count. It's one of the strategies that some people miss. A lot of people miss this. There are ways to get you so that you don't pay hardly any money in taxes. And we do this by doing Roth conversions. And I'll have another slide or a couple slides on this, but suffice it to say, Roth IRAs are excluded. It is one of the few things that are. Life insurance policies, if you're taking a loan against it, are as well. That's not quite as common. But what is included are municipal bonds. If you're living in a high tax state and you have municipal bonds, you do have to include that in this provisional income calculation. I know it sounds weird, but that is the IRS for you, and you do have to include it. All right, so in that instance, again, 18,000. Let's say you're single, $18,000. Well, that's below this threshold. So you would pay zero, you pay zero tax on your Social Security. If you're between the 25 and 34, it is 50% you pay tax on. And if you're over 34, 15% of your Social Security will get taxed. I'm sorry, will not get taxed. The remaining will. So that's for single folks. If you're married, that number's changed a little bit. It's $32,000, 44. You know, one of the interesting things is that if you are married, this should be double. You know, it should be $50,000. You don't have to pay money on tax. Again, politicians, it's a tax year. I'm sorry, election year. they love talking about taxes, how we shouldn't have folks pay tax on their Social Security. Some people should be paying tax. For instance, Bill Gates, he doesn't need the money. He's more than, able to pay the tax on his Social Security. So anyhow, we'll see how that shakes out after we figure out who gets elected, but they always talk about taxes. Anyhow, client example, you got somebody at 64 and a spouse at age 62. They've got 34,000 in Social Security income, and that's if they both file at 62. So that's assuming that both of them file early. They'll get $34,000 in Social Security. But they need they've got $752,000 in the 401k, IRAs, things like that. They do need a 6% annual return on their investments. We're going to assume that 6%. Sometimes you can get higher or lower, but we're just going to average. And they do need to keep pace with inflation, which is we'll just say 3%. And somebody says, you know what? How do I figure out when to take Social Security? And also the final piece to this puzzle is they need $70,000 a year in income. All right. So these are the numbers you got to work with. You got 34,000 coming in early. You've got 752,000 in savings, and you need $70,000 a year after tax income. We're going to assume they live again for 86 and age 89, average life expectancies. So this is the calculator that we run for folks that want this calculator ran for them. It says, okay, we're going to start our Social Security early. That's the blue line. This is the amount that they're taking out in Social Security. The orange line is how much money they need to take out of their 401k. Because remember, the red line is 70,000 and it's going up by 3% every year. That is the red line. And any amount over the red line is taxes. Okay. So every year you take money out of your 401k, IRAs, things like that. You do owe tax on it. And you do owe tax on your Social Security at some point as well. So again, that is the taxable amount. You can see it goes up a little bit year after year. You say, well, this all looks fine and good, except 24 years into the plan, I don't see where they've taken money out of their 401k. And that's because they have run out of money. So this plan would not work for somebody that needed $70,000 and had 750 in savings, as far as filing early, right? This is a no-go zone. If we run this illustration for you and it looks something like this, we have to make modifications to it, all right? So here is if it's optimized, right? So we say, well, knowing that they could run out of money, how do we optimize this? How do we get the most bang for our buck and maximize their Social Security at the same time? You'll see here that for the first 8 years, we are primarily pulling money out of your 401k and your investments, right? So that's 4 or 5 years that you're fully taking money out of your own investments. Again, year one is 70,000 and it goes up by 3% thereafter. Everything above the line, remember, is taxes. So you do owe taxes as you take money out of IRAs and 401ks. But you'll see here at year 8, one of the benefits starts. Year 9, both benefits start. Okay. So this is if we optimize it again for Social Security withdrawals. And you notice this where this line comes down. This is because on one of the married couples, the life expectancy has ended. So we don't need as much money. And you can see here that it has lasted a lot longer. So how much longer you say? Well, first, let me cover the taxes, because initially, if you are taking money out, you can see the orange is the amount in taxes for early withdrawals. The blue line is for optimized, meaning that you notice here, this is the thing with this illustration is that this is the 401k. The blue line is 401k withdrawals. And you do owe more than taxes because you are taking more money out of your savings accounts in order to make ends meet and to satisfy your retirement budget. So yes, you are taking more here, but it drops substantially in this example, a year 2020, which I ran this. So you can see that it drops. So let's evaluate it. So you had gained by maximizing your Social Security an additional $186,000 you will earn in Social Security. That is a big, substantial step up. You also didn't run out of money. More importantly than this 14 years of additional income, you didn't run out of money because we maximized your benefit and we were able to get you 14 years longer of additional portfolio. That is super important. You don't want to run out of money in retirement. And you also paid about $35,000 less in taxes. Okay. So not only did you get $186,000 more, but you also paid $35,000 in less, even though you had 14 more years of income coming in to the household. All right. This is why it's so important to calculate all this out and make sure we do a good job for you. So a couple of things about your statement is that there are no cost of living increases applied to your statement. For instance, I just had a lady show me hers today. She's 60 years old and we're trying to do some calculations for her. And she says, well, at age 70, I'll get this benefit. Well, at age 70, you might get that benefit, but that's going to assume that you are working until age 70. See, what she wanted to do was retire at age 62, use her investment assets until she hit age 67 or 68, because she gets that 8% increase every year that she waits. But her Social Security statement overrepresented the amount she would get. Okay. So she wouldn't get the amount that her Social Security statement said because she doesn't plan on working to age 70. It's important to understand how that Social Security Administration, your statement looks and why it is what it is. All right. And it's for your record only. If you're married, your Social Security statement's not going to tell you which benefit you should take, which spouse benefit you should take, when you should start taking it, when your spouse gets it, or when your spouse, the highest earner, should start their income. And Social Security won't help you. Again, Social Security Administration will not help you with these things. They're there to help you file and to get your benefit. They are not there. What happens if they give you the wrong strategy? What happens if they tell you the wrong thing? You think Social Security Administration is going to fix it? No. Again, their folks have been told not to help you. That's just kind of the way it is. So again, they don't give you any advice. Your statement doesn't give you any advice. That's why you need to talk to somebody that has done a lot of these. All right. So Roth conversion examples. Again, I said that I was going to throw this in here. I did go a little bit faster today so I could cover this. For those of you that are looking at doing Roth conversions or have money put aside in 401ks, TSPs, 403bs, that kind of thing. So first thing here, we'll look at married couple. My slides all screwed up here. Anyhow, let me go through this. So this is an actual example of a client that I had worked with. So I was a married couple. Both of them were government workers. They wanted to look at Roth conversions and they didn't need investment income. Now, this is one of the rare instances where they were getting enough out of their Social Security and also they were getting enough out of their pensions to where they didn't need to touch their investment income. They were looking at investment income to go on trips, fund weddings, that stuff that typically pops up, as you get older. Because by the way, you're the one expected to pay for a lot of these things. So he had about $1.5 million. Him and his wife had about $1 million. I'm sorry, $1.3 million. And he asked me, he says, all right, so now I've got all this money that I put in the 401ks. What what can I do? I mean, is it good? Is it bad? I see myself having an issue. And you do have an issue if, for instance, this guy, he did a great job. He put a lot of his money, most of his savings now is in his tax sheltered account through the government agency. Um, so that is great on one side because he was able to save and he was able to put $1.3 million over his career of 42 years, I believe. But it also comes with a downside. The downside is your taxes. Okay. So if we just said, you know what, let's not do a strategy. Let's just, when you start having to take your required minimum distributions, let's just, take a little bit here and there. But what happens when you have to start taking required minimum distributions at 2046? These numbers are staggering. So here's his tax burden. He's over $200,000 in taxes. Okay. That's not how much money he has in the account. This is how much Uncle Sam puts his hand out and says, hey, Mr. Smith, I need you to pay me this year $200,000. Okay. That is a lot of money. Look here, if he lives to 2052, this is $500,000 check that he would have. Now, I'm not saying he didn't have the money. He obviously has the money. But could you imagine having to write a check to the IRS for $500,000? It's insane. And this is an extreme example because, again, he had most of his money in tax sheltered accounts, 401ks. And I see quite a few people that have this issue pop up. So, and we say, okay, well, if you did a Roth conversion, what would it look like? If we said, all right, let's pop this into our software. Obviously, we can manipulate this depending on what tax bracket you're in, how much money you have in savings, spousal. We put everything in here to help us gauge how much money we need to do. But look at here. This red line here shows that he is increasing his taxes out of his $1.3 million. We're doing Roth conversions. So he is paying about, $60,000 a year in taxes that otherwise he would not, right? If you waited, you wouldn't have to do that. Your tax is very small. But we are doing that here. We're kind of front loading the scenario. And it says the green is tax decreases, right? So in 2033, you see, he's actually having to pay a little bit less in taxes. Remember, the gray is this gray from the prior bar plus the green. So this was what he was going to have to pay without doing the strategy. And you can see here, it's a reduction of this amount. This isn't, remember, the green is the amount that he does not have to pay because we did a Roth conversion. And you can see here where, remember that year that he had to pay $500,000? Well, we reduced that down to about $150,000. You say, well, does that make sense? Is it worth it to do this? Again, he's knocked down all of his taxes. Yes, the simple answer is yes. By doing a Roth conversion, this client will have saved and accumulated an additional $1 million. Oh, sorry. $1 million in their estate. And the question is for him is, what are you going to do with that extra $1 million? You're going to leave it to your kids. You got charity, you got this, you got that. What is it that you want to do with it? This, and again, I had a lot of people ask me questions about this. That's why I wanted to cover it tonight. Because if you have a lot of money in 401ks, IRAs, that kind of thing, we can get you substantially more money in retirement by not paying as much in tax. Okay. This is an important concept and a strategy we use quite often for folks that have $1 million or more in tax sheltered accounts. All right. So I want to go over that. Now, you've stuck it out with us for the last 45 minutes or so, 50 minutes now. How do you get that workbook? All right, I'm going to show you how to get the workbook right now. But I want to show you a couple things real quick. What do you get when you do get this workbook? You get a personalized Social Security analysis. Remember, if you workbook's yours, no questions asked. I'll give you the link here in just a second. But if you do want to get your personalized Social Security analysis done by us, I showed you some of the screens from the software. It is individualized to you, and it tells you when the best start date is and why. Not only are we going to say, well, it's obvious you should start at age 70, but if the why is important. So you get your Social Security analysis, and also the analysis is going to visually show you if you're married, single, divorced, widowed, what benefit you're going to get, how you're going to get your benefit, how much money you're going to get. We'll also do cost of living increases. It's going to show you almost to the penny how to maximize your benefit. Here's an example of some of the charts and illustrations that you're going to get from us. And everybody always asks, well, if I file early or if I file late, how many years do I have to live? And by and large, it's 77 in this example. It does change a bit here and there, but 77. So if you live to age 78, it is typically better to wait. So again, you're going to get the Social Security analysis, you get all the charts and all the visual aids, and it's going to show you the different scenarios in case your situation changes. For instance, I was working with a lady back in March. She was a school teacher. She's thinking of retiring, and she's, well, I'm going to work 3 more years. I said, okay, here's kind of your plan. This is how it's going to look in 3 years. She's 60 years old. And she just called me 2 weeks ago and said, nope, I'm out. I do not want to go back to school. We went back and we reran everything for her, and everything is good. But we changed the amount she's going to get in Social Security because, again, Social Security says that you're going to get a certain benefit as long as you work up until that date. So you need to know that, because in her case, it was overrepresented because it assumed that she was going to work. And obviously, at the end of most people's careers, those are going to be typically your highest income years. So that's going to be one of your highest 35 years that they're going to calculate. All right. So we also help you coordinate some of your benefits. Again, Social Security is the bedrock. That is, according to the food pyramid, ground zero. Then we look at some of your pensions, qualified monies, 401ks, life insurance. Some folks can take loans against life insurance policies as well. So if all we did was show you how to increase your Social Security by $50,000 to $60,000, which is average, would it be worth it to get the extra analysis done? If all we did was potentially save you thousands of dollars in taxes, again, we showed you that illustration where he made an extra $1 million, but wouldn't it be worth it to at least just take a look to see if Roth conversions are beneficial for you? If so, how much would it be? How much is your taxes going to be? How much can you convert? Those are all good things to know. So again, what you're going to get, Social Security analysis, income planning guide, and your Roth conversion guide. All you have to do is go to maxhoursocialsecurity.com. Again, it's super easy. www.maxhoursocialsecurity.com. And that is where you pick up your workbook. And again, if you want the free analysis, we're more than happy to do that for you as well. There'll be a little button, radio button. You click free analysis and just pick a time. Okay, so we are just about a couple minutes beyond where I like to be, but I do like to answer any questions that come up. I will look, as a matter of fact, let me open this back up. actually. This way I can see that if there are any questions. Feel free, if you are in YouTube, to pop the questions in the chat. And actually, let me put this in here. So it's clickable. It's Max our Social Security. .com. All right. So again, maxoursocialsecurity.com. I did just put that into the YouTube channel. YouTube hasn't quite caught up to the rest of it. And let me go ahead and post that in the chat channel here too. Everybody can see this. It's www.maxoursocialsecurity.com. Okay, so I just popped that up in the chat. If you are on Zoom, you can go ahead and click on that as well. So let me go ahead and open this up for questions. Again, for Q&A, you can go ahead and ask any questions. This is your time, and you can ask questions regarding the Roth conversions if you want as well. Although I didn't really cover it in too much detail. All right, so let me pop that open. How do you schedule a time? So how you schedule a time is when you go to that maxoursocialsecurity.com at the very bottom, it'll ask you to for us to send you the PDF of the workbook. We're going to do that, but at the very bottom, you just click the button and pick a time on the schedule that works for you. That's open in my schedule, and that's how you schedule the appointment for your free Social Security analysis. You can do it on your own. That's what the workbook's for. But if you want us to help you devise a plan and figure some of that stuff out, we're more than happy to do that. All right, so that's one. Two. Do you have to be 62 years old in order to start Social Security? Yes, you do. You have to be 62 years or older, unless you're a widow or widower, in order to start your Social Security. Now, remember, it will be at a reduced benefit amount by 25%. So let's say if your benefit at full retirement age is $2,000, it now will get reduced to $1,500. And outside of cost of living increases, you'll never get an increase in that amount. Even though you turn 63, they don't increase it. They start you off at that level, and it's the same for the rest of your life. However, I will say that they do give you some cost of living increases. Hopefully that answers your question. If you've got more, just pop it up there. What about the markets? Yeah, so what about the markets? The markets are very topsy-turvy right now. Let's face it. We've got an election year, which means that politicians are selling you the world, telling you they're going to solve everybody's problems. That isn't going to help. We've got issues with potentially China. We certainly have issues with the Middle East. We've got all these things coming up. I will say this, though. If you ever look at economics, and by the way, I have a degree in economics. And so if you look at it, if you look at generally how the economy is doing, there's a couple things you can do. One is that if you look at how many people are defaulting on their houses or foreclosures, it's my understanding that number's up by about 20%. People are defaulting on their credit cards. That's up close to 30%, I believe. They are maxing out the credit cards. The debt to income ratio is skyrocketed. And also, people are defaulting on credit cards, their cars, and their homes. And it's all up 20+%. That means that we are running into the end of the road. We're getting close to the end of the road, right? There's only so much money people can pull out of credit cards. There's only so much money that they can pull out of certain places before they just start running out of money. Inflation is up. We all see that. You go to the supermarket, the boxes have shrunk, prices of beef and everything's up 25, 30%. It's hard. If you're on a fixed income, it's hard. If you're down here in South Florida, just look at insurance on condos. That in some condos has tripled. So if I plan for a budget and you're on a fixed income and it's relatively tight, now all of a sudden you got expenses that have potentially tripled. What are we going to do? Well, some people down here in South Florida are moving out. Yeah, they're moving to Tennessee. They're moving to Mississippi. Some are moving to Georgia where the insurance prices aren't so high. So there are issues coming about. It's always slow. It always takes a little time to happen. But if you have money in the market, my suggestion is you start circling the wagons. Okay. That's just my suggestion. By the way, there are certain investments that you can still get great returns and lower your risk. All right. This isn't an investment workshop, so I'm not going to get into that part of it. But suffice it to say that there are certain investments you can do that are great. They help lower your risk, and they actually over time get you a better return. If you're interested in that, obviously jump on there and we can share that. All right. So I've gone over my time a little bit. I do appreciate everybody being on this call. I do have other workshops. Now that you've been on this, I will send out invitations to the other workshops. I do have one specifically on Roth conversions. Also, I have one on investments, how to set up your retirement with, Medicare, what you should be looking out for, what is IRMAA, some of the terms we all use. But thank you again for being on this call. We will send out other invitations for other workshops. And if you have anything else, feel free to shoot me an email and or set up a time and let's chat. Talk to you soon. Bye now.